So
That's
this
the
is the
beauty.
difference,
Yeah.
in the philosophy. Yes, that is beauty. Yes,
But this
and that system has
explanation was
continued.
required actually. Like, anybody can have this doubt on their mind, like, why if we had,
Right.
world-class engineers available, then why we don't have the monuments like them? So definitely this
Yeah.
discussion was
Now at least I think now the Indians have got the opportunity to showcase their knowledge in science and technology.
yes, yes.
And the stark example of that is the
Chandrayaan
success of
and then
Chandrayaan. And
Aditya.
today, this Aditya also.
Yes,
So that is, it was very much there, that, some spark was required. And now the generation is getting that, proper opportunity and spark. And, we are marching now.
yes,
So,
yes.
one important contribution of the Harappans in the world history is that we have taught the world how to build modern cities, well planned and hygienic cities. So the Harappan cities were so well planned. Probably they had the we don't know, but because we are not able to read the Harappan script, but probably they had proper knowledge of various other various many sciences rather, and they also had proper knowledge about mathematics, because unless you have the knowledge of mathematics, you
Yes.
cannot really build such a beautiful well planned cities. And we also find the evidence of measures, and these measures that they develop measuring system. So we have the evidence for that also. So that also requires knowledge. Mathematics,
Yes.
knowledge is required.
Mathematics and
So
geometry both.
the cities were so clean, very well planned, and we have found a lot of Harappan skeletal remains, because Harappans used to bury the dead bodies in the separate cemetery. So we have excavated those cemetery, and we have carried out a lot of scientific studies. So we know a lot about the health of the people, diet of the people. Now, who are the Harappan people? That also we know now because of the scientific research. And I excavated one site called Farmana, which is close to Rakhigarhi in Haryana. So there we excavated the biggest Harappan cemetery. And with me, we're working some Korean scientists on understanding the pathology during the Harappan times. And after the end of the research, the Koreans were so disappointed. They said that no, we do not detect any major disease in the Harappan people, and that was mainly because of two things. One is that their city is very, very clean and hygienic. If you see the drainage pattern of the Harappans, let me explain that also. They were the first people in the world to develop the concept of toilet and bathroom. And we have actual evidence of that. Okay. Then they had a very, very, elaborate drainage network within the cities, within the settlements. They had wells, they had proper drainage system, they had open and closed drainage system. The toilets had the closed drainage system, and the bathrooms are open drainage system. And they had the network, and that network was connected to the main drainage line. And the evidence at Harappa indicate that the main drainage line was taken outside the city wall, and emptied somewhere, making sure that there is no spread of any dirty water within the settlement. Because of that, the Harappan cities were so clean, and because of that, the people were so hygienic and
They
so
had the
healthy.
vision.
So that is one reason. And the second reason is that they developed this health sciences. I talked about this Ayurveda. Probably they were the pioneers in developing this, and the yoga and meditation. So we have the evidence of that. We have actual figurines of terracotta figurines, human terracotta figurines, in different yogic posture. In that, I think we must have found the exact number we cannot give, But Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, also Rakhigarhi,
Mm-hmm.
these are the big cities, which have produced the evidence of, in this respect. And we must have maybe, in the range of 100 to 150.
Okay, that's a good number.
Yeah, but the very fact that we find them in the proper excavation, the proper context, that means they are the handiwork of the Harappans. That is quite clear. Then on the Harappan seals, we find these the human figures in meditation posture, and there is a very famous seal on which you
Pashupati.
find a horn. Yeah, Pashupati is called Pashupati. A human being wearing a horn headdress, and in a your yogic posture, meditation posture, and surrounded by jungle scene. So that is the evidence we have, and there are number of seals like that. We have this depiction on number of other objects also. So we have strong evidence about the evidence of meditation, and perhaps that was also fully developed by the Harappans. So because of that, the Harappa, Indians they have carried forward this particular tradition from the Harappans till today, and we consider that as the best gift of India to the world.
Definitely.
And the roots of that go back to the Harappan times. That is very important.
It's definitely.
So we have the evidence for that. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So, this initially we were talking about this Ayurveda as well, where you said like we have found some medicinal herbs. So, in what condition they have been found? Because it has been
No, they
thousands
are
of years
found in the
now.
form of chart. Chart remains only.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
botanists have identified. There's a very important institute in Lucknow.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it was called as Birbasani Institute of Paleobotany, but now it is retermed as Birbasani Institute of Paleosciences. So there was one scholar called Professor Saraswat. He was a botanist. He is no more now, and he had examined the carbon remains from the site of Kunal, which is in Haryana, which was excavated by the Haryana state government, Department of Archaeology. So there he has reported some remains of herbal plants.
Oh.
So that is very important. So we, this kind of evidence may be there in other sites. Perhaps we have maybe overlooked them. We are not really examined them properly. But now we know that we have to look for this evidence also at other sites. So from here onward, whenever we excavate sites, we will do proper analysis of the data. The organic matter in the form of chart remains, that will be studied properly now from here onward.
Yes, yes.
So
and that will be again
there is a definite
great
evidence for that.
discovery further.
Yes. So because of this, that Harappans, were so healthy, and that tradition has continued. So it continued. See, we have very strong oral tradition in Indian subcontinent. So the knowledge is passed from one generation to another generation by the oral tradition. And probably when the world's earliest universities at Taxila and then Nalanda were established, Vikramshila also was established later. So these are the world's earliest universities. They flourished in India. So when these universities came up, then this is the Harappan knowledge, which I call as the Indian knowledge system. So that was taught in these universities, and people from other countries. There is a record
Yes.
at Nalanda that the students and the scholars used to come from 40 different countries to learn Indian knowledge system. We were very good in mathematics. We were very good in astronomy. We were very good in various other sciences. So they used to come to learn this. So we have such a important system. So this knowledge from the Harappans till this university got developed, it was carried forward by the oral tradition. And even today, the oral tradition is so strong in India. I excavated one site in Rajasthan, and one day he said that no, he said that I read genealogy of the royal family in Udaipur. Okay, and he was not educated. He never went to school, but he can remember the genealogy for 800 years. So that is the tradition we have. So that is how the knowledge has not disappeared because of even the Mughals came here.
Forward.
Yeah, the Mughals came here, the British came here. British tried very hard, in fact, to suppress our knowledge system, but still it has survived. And now in the new education policy, the Indian knowledge system is very important part of the curriculum now. And I'm sure that once the Indian knowledge system and the modern knowledge system, they are integrated properly, we will be able to come up with some innovative education system. So that is very important. And lastly, also I would like to mention that the non-violence, that concept also has come from the Harappans. It is very age-old tradition in the Indian subcontinent. See, we do not find large number of offensive and defensive weapons, not at all. We have large number of these weapons in Mesopotamia and Egypt, but not here. That is one important difference. Secondly, we have excavated cemeteries, but we do not find any violence as such, which is revealed through the cemeteries. It is not there. We do not have any evidence of the destruction of any Harappan city. It was not invaded by some maybe other communities, and that kind of violence is not there. So that also indicates that people right from the beginning of the Indian tradition, we are the peace-loving people.
Yeah,
and that tradition also continues even today. So this is very, very important. So, and then of course we have also contributed to the knowledge of pottery making, the earthen pot.
Yes.
Then we also develop the textile industry, textile maybe science also. We have the earliest evidence of cotton anywhere in the world. The Harappans were the first to develop maritime trade contacts with outside world because they did not have a lot of resources within the region. So this was an innovative way to approach or reach the foreign countries and develop a trade contact with them and get wealth from them. So the Mesopotamian text talks about the region called Melua, and Melua is identified with the Harappan. And we find a list of the objects that were imported from Melua. So large number of objects were have gone from here, like articles made of red stone. That is articles made of semi-precious stone, like beads, bangles. Then also articles made of red metal, that is copper and bronze. They were imported by the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians. Articles made of shell, ivory. So there is a lot of big list, but we don't find the reference of the things that were imported by the Harappans from there. Very few objects maybe were imported. So trade was always surplus, in fact, for the Harappans. So they have used that for their own benefit, for their own development.
So Melua, I think this is very ancient city.
No, Melua, the Mesopotamian text talks about 3 regions with whom they had very strong trade contact. One is Melua, other one is Magan, and Melua, Magan, and Dilmun. So Melua is identified on the basis of the location, on the basis of the object that were coming from this region, because ivory was found only in the in the Indian subcontinent. The red stone they talk about is found, that is called carnelian. That is found here only. The shell is found here. So these are the objects, objects made of this material were imported by the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians. So on the basis of this, Meluha has been identified with the Harappan region, Dilmun with the, this uh, Oman and Bahrain region, and Magan with the Makran coast.
Okay. No, because I was asking this, I just remember the title of Amish Tripaঠি's book, Vellua. So that's why I asked.
Meluha, yes.
Yeah.
Right. And they, apart from that, these, Harappans, they were pioneer in developing the textile in cotton, silk, jute, and wool also. Then perhaps, they also started, the printing, technology also. This printed cloth that we wear, the
Okay.
tradition of that goes back to the Harappan times. Because, you might recall, from the site of Mohenjo-daro, we have recovered one so-called priest king.
Okay.
So there's a bust of a man with a trimmed beard, and on one of his shoulders there's a shawl. He looks like a priest. So the shawl was, painted. In fact, there are beautiful, painting on the shawl, the traces of which have been found. So that, that technique was developed by the Harappans probably. The knowledge, if you see the site of Dholavira, the knowledge that they have developed there is incredible. This site of Dholavira, even during the Harappan times, was located in the desert part. And the Harappans had to develop this particular city at any cost, because it was on a very important trade route between Sindh and Saurashtra. Sindh had a manufacturing facility, and Saurashtra had, the resources. So they had to be traded between these two regions. So they developed some important cities at regular intervals, and Dholavira is one of them on the trade route. And this was developed in the desert part. So what the Harappans did? There is something to learn from the Harappans also. Even the modern town planners, they should learn. They studied the geography and geology of the region first. They simply did not go there and establish the city. They studied the area properly, and they decided to develop the city between two small rivers. One river is called Manhar, and the other river is called Mansar. So between these two rivers, the city was established. And what they did, they knew that there is, dearth of water. They knew that, there is a occasional rainfall in the desert part. But whenever there is occasional rainfall, these rivers get flash floods, sudden floods. In the desert part, that is the, general situation. So Harappans put series of dams on both the rivers, check dams. And they diverted the entire water inside the settlement. And inside the settlement, at regular intervals, they dug underground water reservoirs, small and big ones, huge ones. And reservoirs were connected to each other by underground water channel system, because, the tanks can be filled in one after the other. And they also dug some very deep wells there. In case the water from the tank is over, there will be always water in the deep wells. So that is one very important, system that they develop. They also develop, what is known as the storm water drainage system. In case the water comes in a huge volume, it should not damage the city. So there, they created this storm water drainage system, so that will take care of that. And then in the desert part, they kept they had a flowing water inside the settlement, almost, running water inside the settlement. So this system was created by the people. In fact, I suggested, the government that we should adopt this Harappan system, which is so relevant. It is so simple. It does not really require foreign collaboration. It does not require a lot of funding. It can be developed by the villagers. You might recall Anna Hazare, in fact, he
Yes,
developed the
yes.
same system in Raleigh
Radical
Siddhi.
Siddhi. Yeah.
Yes. So that knowledge, which was developed 4,500 years ago, that is so relevant even today.
Yes,
And
it
then,
is
of course,
relevant.
we can talk about how the Harappans could develop cities and towns. There are very little resources available with them. But then, as I mentioned, that they knew that the resources are outside the Harappan region, within the Indian subcontinent, and they were controlled by the contemporary population. There were also people outside the Harappan region also. They were, what we call them as the early farmers. They're mostly living in, small city, small towns, small villages.
Villages.
So they develop contacts, this very, congenial contact with these people. They acquire the raw material from them. The Harappans had the technology with them. They are the workshops. So they started processing this, raw materials in their workshops, and they supplied the finished good to the same people from whom they acquired the raw material. That's how the Harappans, started developing
Trade.
prosperity.
Yeah.
And then they thought that they can make a much more bigger, maybe investment and go beyond Indian subcontinent. That is how they started this maritime trade, for which I mentioned that they developed the world's earliest or the first dockyard. They developed number of ports on the coastal side, and they carried out trade with Oman, with Bahrain, with Gulf region, with Mesopotamia up to Egypt. So they were generating a lot of wealth through trade. And that wealth was used for the development of the culture. So they developed from village-based culture to urban-based culture because of the system that they followed. And I always give the example of Japan. Japan was destroyed in Second World War. I visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I've seen what kind of destruction. And the whole world realized that perhaps Japan will not rise again. But Japan rose within 15 years. And within 15 years, Japan became a world economic power that they showcased during the Tokyo Olympics in 1964. And Japan adopted the same strategy as the Harappans did, in fact, because Japan had the technology. They did not have natural resources. They started importing natural resources from India, China. They started producing on mass scale finished goods, and they started supplying the finished good to the same countries from whom they acquired raw material. That is how Japan could rise. So it is not that now we study the cultures, but the knowledge that is generated, that also has relevance. In fact, we can put to use this knowledge also.
We should utilize
This how,
it.
yes. See, the knowledge has spread, in fact. It is not confined to Indian subcontinent. It has gone beyond that also. Because we had this long maritime tradition contacts. In the later subsequent period, we developed contacts with Southeast Asia, with China, Korea, and Japan. Our Buddhism has also traveled through this trade routes. So ideas also have traveled along with this. Cultural elements, ideas have traveled also with this. So this how this, and then we take pride in our Indian curry. The Indian curry, the genesis of that goes to the Harappan times. I analyzed some pots from the burials at Farmana. The technical residue analysis. When something is kept inside the pot, maybe liquid, then it forms a thin layer inside, and maybe small particles are always stuck to that, even if you wash the pot. So we scrape that and we analyze the content of that, and we found the remains of ginger, turmeric, garlic, and brinjal. So these are the ingredients of the Indian curry.
Yeah, even today.
So it goes back to the Harappan times. Then also the concept of chicken tandoor comes from the Harappans.
Everything we are rediscovering that
Yeah,
means in
exactly.
modern
We
era.
are, exactly. Now we see it is not rediscovery. This knowledge was intentionally when the Britishers came here,
Mhm.
they knew that the system that we had, education system, is very strong. So they kept our education system away, and they imposed on us their education system. So this knowledge was not imparted to us at all. But now at least we are realized, and now this knowledge will be imparted.
That's
So
it.
this is the great story of the
Yeah, yeah.
Indian
Great
civilization.
civilization. I just want to, conclude one thing, because we started the discussion and you mentioned that, Vedic era and the Indus civilization or Indus Saraswati civilization era can be, the same period. But in Vedic period, we have all the Vedas, all Upanishads that were written in Sanskrit. Even Yoga Sutras, maybe like, 23, 2400 years, back, it was written by Patanjali. It was in Sanskrit, but the kind of manuscript found in Indus civilization or Harappan, civilization, we are not able to read it. So how is that? It's like,
Say this, various texts, ancient texts, they were not written to one at the same time.
hmm,
For example, the Rigvedic text is considered the earliest text in Indian subcontinent,
okay,
and there are different dates for that. Some scholar place it at 3000 BC. Even Lokmanya Tilak place it at 6000 BC. Most of the scholars put it between 2000 and 1500 BCE. It may not have been written that time, but the memories were written in fact at some stage. We don't know exactly when it was written.
hmm,
We don't have. Secondly, that if you see the description, and if you want to find out maybe the corresponding archaeological evidence for that, it talks about frequently about, particularly I'm talking about the Rigvedic texts. It talks
yes,
frequently about river Saraswati.
yes, you
So we have
mentioned,
identified the river Saraswati now.
yeah,
We have identified the cultures that flourish on the bank of river Saraswati. So it talks, the Sapta Sindhu river basin. It talks about that region also, and it's mentions that there are flourishing settlements in that region. Now, if you see the archaeological evidence, you find only large number of Harappan sites there. So if the Rigvedic text has talk about the settlements, they are talk perhaps about these Harappan settlements. We do not find the settlements of the earlier period or later period in such a large number. Maybe sporadic settlements we find. And nobody will refer to the sporadic settlements unless that region is so important. So that region was important. There were flourishing cities and settlements. So that is one evidence, we try to connect with the Rigvedic text. Then Rigvedic text also talks about the ideal city.
that
And
is
it mentioned that the
Golvira.
city is divided into three parts.
Hmm.
And that exactly the same evidence comes from the only city that we have is the city of Dholavira, which belongs to the Harappan culture, Harappan civilization. So there is a corresponding evidence. It talks about the fire worship. The settlements located in that region only, Saraswati Basin region, only have the evidence of fire worship. We have the evidence of fire worship at Rakhigarhi, even at Kalibanga, Banawli. These are the sites which have been excavated. So we have strong evidence of the fire worship there. Properly made, this Agni Kunda fire, altars are found. We also find some, animal bones inside, charred human bones in situ. Some offering was done in that. So that is the kind of evidence we find. It talks about, the long distance trade, maritime contacts. We have the evidence of that in the Harappan region. Even, of course, there are two things, which are very important in the Vedic texts, which are mentioned. One is the horse. So we do not have a strong evidence of horse in the Harappan levels. But there is a site called Surkotla in Kutch part of Gujarat, and we have found some animal bones. So these bones were studied by two different, archaeozoologists, world famous archaeozoologists. One group was headed by one Bocconi. He was from Hungary. So he identified the bones from Surkotla as belonging to the proper domesticated horse. And these bones were recovered from the Harappan sites. But later the same bones were studied by one group from Harvard, headed by one Richard Meadow. So Richard Meadow says that no, they are not bones of the domesticated horse, but they are the bones of wild donkey or wild ass. So here, the community is divided, the scientific community. But now there are sites, where we have identified the bones of the horse also. Maybe it was not a popular horse, was not eaten probably that time. Therefore, we do not find large number of bones. We find bones of cattle, sheep, goat in large number, but not of horse, because this is a very important utility animal probably. So
Yes,
there is some
definitely.
indication of that. And also, we do not have strong evidence of the Vedic gods. We have the evidence of fire worship, but we also have the evidence of Shiva, but not even Agni, Varun probably was there. So this, there is a lot of indications that Harappans and the Rigvedic people were one and the same.
But still that
So
mystery remains, right? That manuscript is different and we have
no,
Sanskrit
what is the manuscript you're talking about?
manuscript which was found.
No, say Harappan script that we have found, that is
Okay,
not deciphered yet. That is not
okay,
deciphered.
okay,
And there is not much evidence in that, because we have found maybe small few letters here and there. Of course, they are proper writing system, but how much information is found there, that is not clear, and we are not we do not know. But this indirect archaeological evidence can be used to understand the relation between Harappans and the Rigvedic people. Now, the recent DNA research that we have done, that also clearly mentioned that the Harappans were the indigenous people. Their contact with outside world. They the Harappan genealogy spread almost all over South Asia, right from Afghanistan to Bengal, and from Ladakh, Kashmir up to Andaman Nicobar. So, and most of the people, most of us, we are the descendants of the Harappans. And then, of course, there are a lot of mixing happening because of the movement of the people. So there is no a separate, maybe genetic, group which we can identify as the Vedic group. So I think this is, the scientific evidence, which is very important, and also, people say that the Indo-European languages came from outside, but there is no evidence to indicate now from where it has come, when this particular Indo-European language was originated. And the Indo-European language have the Sanskrit base. So my hypothesis, which is not, of course, this is just a hypothesis, I believe that perhaps Harappans were so advanced, they also had proper language, and I feel that Harappans perhaps spoke the early form of Sanskrit. And when the Harappans started moving outside, the language and the cultural elements, even their ideas also began to move outside Indian subcontinent. They began to spread, and people, maybe started adopting them. So, in the concept of, maybe typical gods also have traveled outside Indian subcontinent. Then, the other concepts like, the maritime trade activities and the languages, cultural elements. So this is the hypothesis, of course. Now we are working on that, but there's a possibility that the Sanskrit language is spoken by the Harappans. And that was the base of the Indo-European language.
So prior to Sanskrit, we had Prakrit. So might be they have been, speaking Prakrit.
See, Prakrit must have been there right from the early times also, because they uh, flourish in different ecological zones, and there may be different, maybe regional languages also these people spoke. So that is a possibility, of course.
That's good. It was very good conversation. I just want to understand one more thing, okay, while
Yeah,
concluding about the life duration of these people. Like how many years they used to live.
I
Do we
think
find that?
probably 40 to 45 years, because we have found the remains of the people not older than 45 years so far.
Okay.
So
Like,
probably 40.
yeah, that means it was very less at that time, right? 40 to 45
Yeah,
year
but
old.
45 years is quite, in that period. After after Britishers, the lifespan of the Indians was something like 35 to 40.
And it was 45 at that time.
Yeah, yeah. So I was talking, I was saying that maybe around 40, 45 years is not a, small time. In that period, 4,500 years ago, that was a good, period of lifespan.
I think then in this limited lifespan, they have created a
They have created exactly. They have
whole universe
see
only.
the achievement of the people. The Namaste tradition was introduced by the Harappans. We have the actual terracotta figurines in Namaste position at Kalibanga. So the whole world has realized the importance, scientific importance of Namaste tradition during the
During
COVID,
COVID.
pandemic. Yes.
Yes,
So
yes,
that is also our contribution.
yeah. So we have touched many aspects actually of
Yes,
yoga.
yes,
So we wanted to discuss only yoga, but I think this is very much interesting. And then of course, uh, it, it is you feel very excited, you feel very enthusiastic when you know your history.
yes,
Of course,
yes,
we
yes.
are very very enthusiastic about our future, considering the way India is moving on right now. But it's
Right.
really nice to know that how well we were doing earlier as well, and we are
Yeah, we
just
had a very
connecting
strong base.
points now
Yeah, we had
again.
a very strong base. That's very sound base. That is true.
Yeah, and thank you very much for your time,
Thank you.
Sanjeev.
Yeah, it was pleasure meeting you, and wish you all the best.